Everybody hear me now? Oh, good, I can hear myself. So I'm from a group of doctors who are really just trying to be reasonable and tell a bit of truth and work out what is true in this kind of fog of war, where each side seems to be using science as some sort of weapon to bosh each other over the head. So I started my medical training 41 years ago now, and as of next week, well, thank you, it's been a long innings, but as of next week, I may not be a doctor anymore. So I'm waiting and seeing on there. What we are about is simply telling the truth and maintaining medical freedom. People's rights to choose what happens to their body. I know, who'd have thought we'd have to clap such a simple concept? It seems to be in danger. And the right to be told some truths. And, in 41 years, I never would have imagined, well, in fact, in a million years, that, I and my colleagues would be forced to stand up and speak out and risk our livelihoods and our standing and our careers for such a politicized and distorted environment where telling the truth, telling basic, simple truths that have been agreed for since the Second World War around what we need to be told in order to give a full and informed consent for medical procedures, to make a decision what is best for us and especially for our children. And I sincerely hope that now that the official rollout is to include children down to 12 years old, and whilst there is work in the background, looking at approving it to potentially down as young as 6 months old, that this becomes the final straw that helps people wake up to the realities of what is nothing less than a complete demolition deconstruction of very profound and powerful and important agreements made between medicine and society since the Nuremberg Declaration of 1947, when the world said, never again will people be forcibly experimented on without their knowledge, understanding, permission. And there is no way to avoid the simple fact of this vaccine rollout being experimental. Legally, there has been provisional consent by the government given for the emergency use authorization of a vaccine that Dr. Helen Patousis-Harris, in her own words, described as having a paucity of safety data. And in my 41 years, I don't think I've ever seen a new therapeutic, to use a polite term, released with so little basis for knowing what's going to happen. So it is a fact that it's experimental. Okay, so as long as it's not informed by completed clinical trials, which have then led to a full approval, it is guesswork as to what it might result in. So there is no data for medium and long-term side effects. And not only that, it seems that there is a very high burden of side effects, including death, compared again to any newly released medication that I've ever seen and used. It's very hard to know exactly what the truth is, but it's not our responsibility to prove whether or not a vaccine injury or a death, or an injury or death after having had the vaccine, is caused by the vaccine or not. It's the responsibility of government, who are rolling out a new medication for which we've been told it's safe and effective. But if it's not, we would expect that somebody would tell us, hey, it looks like there might be problems, and we're going to pause this thing and look at it properly. So our perception has been that at almost every point in the processes that you'd expect between somebody potentially having a side effect and it being reported to the public, there are problems that all amount in the end to a lack of confidence, to put it mildly, in the reporting systems. So we've been criticised, we've criticised for pretty much everything we've said, and that's fine, but particularly for hosting on our site the work of some incredibly heroic and concerned people who are doing their best to catalogue and quantify what might be happening as a result of this vaccination. And we are the first people to say, look, there is uncertainty. We are not even beginning to claim that every single injury and death is caused by this vaccine. But it's not our job to find that out. It's the job of MedSafe and the Ministry of Health to look out for us and protect us. Now, if it was true that this vaccine would make COVID go away, then maybe, just maybe, society might agree to take some risks. But it's becoming clearer and clearer that the people who, right from the start, were scorned for saying things like, well, there's no proof it's going to stop transmission, there's no proof that it's going to stop you necessarily getting COVID-19. Well, actually, we were told at the beginning that the vaccination would be the solution to not needing masks, not needing lockdowns, or being able to go back to work, go back to school. But like many of the things that were said early at the beginning that were dismissed as being, in the crazy conspiracy basket, that are now largely accepted quietly and increasingly in the mainstream, it's increasingly clear that the vaccine is not working to do what we were told it would probably do for us. And not only that, possibly the opposite. And there's some emerging data that is worthy of proper discussion and examination. And I'm being as conservative and sober as I can in how I say these things, because my experience has been anything I say in any forum gets straight back to the last people I want them to have, would want to have it, but that's just the nature of the digital sort of internet age that we live in. But there's plenty of, as I'm sure you all know, very expert people and plenty of data to say, look, you can make a case that the vaccines are not working as we would want. So Israel is being lined up for their shot number 4. Several million people have been given the 3rd booster, and their vaccine czar is telling them that they should expect the 4th booster as well. And at some point, we're just going to have to use our common sense and say, look, is this worth it? And thankfully, some scientists in the FDA have had a look, and they've heard what, for instance, the Biden administration has been saying about mandating boosters. And the FDA have said today, I understand, that they are not supporting that, and they don't have evidence that the boosters would work. And there is zero clinical evidence at all of what might happen. There have been no clinical trials for a 3rd, let alone a 4th booster. There's been no trials looking at mixing different vaccines. So, if this isn't Russian roulette, I don't know what is. And my sincere hope is that we are fine, that everybody that's been vaccinated is fine, but we already know that's not true for some people. But if we dodge a bullet, it will be more by good luck than by proper planning and scientific assessment of what's going on step by step. So I think anybody who feels hesitant and doesn't want to be vaccinated has the full weight of history, certainly going back to at least 1945, when it became clear what had been done by very reasonable and well thought of doctors who had faithful and grateful patients leading up to the outbreak of the war, who after the war then said, well, it was expected of us, we did what we were told, we didn't really understand what we were doing. And I would hate for anyone I have worked with and have known professionally and respect to find themselves in a similar position at some point down the line, saying, well, you know, we were told to do it, or everybody did it, which seems to be what's happening. Without trying to wake people up and saying, look, there's good quality science that says it's not working, and it looks like there's a lot more harm than we hoped or we would expect. So I'm really biting my tongue here. You've got no idea what I prefer to say. I'm not quite there yet. You know, while there's a very small percentage chance that I'll wake up and this alternative reality that we've all been in has suddenly finished tomorrow. I'd hate to call it the last fence, but you know, I don't know that I can be part of a group of people who have so willingly handed over the sentinel kind of guardian role that we have to the government. And I think there's lots of other stuff obviously going on, but I'm not a politician and I'm not qualified to speak really on anything other than how the science seems to me. But I think there's a way to go, but I think the weight of truth and independent science and the principles of my body, my choice, and the obligation on all of us to protect the most precious and vulnerable in our society, which include obviously our children and our unborn children too. You know, and in a country that has some of the most liberal abortion laws on the planet, and we are lauded and praised for this from some quarters, you know, it's very important there's an opposite side of the coin, and that is that somebody looking out for, you know, the safety of, you know, the mums and the babies that are wanted. And I'm not making any sort of pejorative statement against abortion here. This is yet another example where there's no balance. So I've probably said all I ought to say at the moment, but I just want to applaud the courage and the kind of ethical centre that almost everybody I talk to that has concerns is showing. You're not crazy. You know, you are a minority at the moment, but this minority is getting bigger. And the thing, it seems to me, that is the most successful is just to keep having conversations. And something I learned a while ago, I wish I'd learned it a lot longer, was that you can't expect somebody to, in an instant, come around to your point of view. Because we've spent months, maybe years, or maybe our whole lifetime, getting to the place that we've got at the moment. But you can plant a seed, and you may never know whether your seed is the one that flowers and germinates in that person. But a great place to start off is to just find out who that person is and ask them what they think. Spend a bit of time, take a breath, and just listen to what they say before you launch in to what you think. And that's far more likely to make a successful conversation than making it a battle of wills. But of course we're anxious for people, we're terrified, we're horrified that they might have something awful happen to them, or someone in their family, and in our families. And it's no joke what is happening to relationships and families and the workplace. People's whole networks are being torn asunder, but people are making new networks and finding new friends. And those of us that are naturally skeptical and distrustful of authority and want to make our own minds up and not be told what to think and do, have got to stick together and keep finding each other. Because that is going to be the way through this, I believe. It's going to be people power. So I think I'll wind it up there. But it's great to see you guys, and keep up the good work. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.